Today's Pirke Abot class is dedicated in loving memory and Leilui Nishmat, the best father-in-law, Shlomo ben Rachel, alav shalom, by Peggy Dahan. Please make be'achot after the class, Leilui Nishmato. I'm going to make one now. Leilui Nishmato, Shlomo ben Rachel. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh baro. Coffee. Okay. Let us begin. The Mishnah says, Rabbi Meir used to say, Hevei mima'et be'esek ve'asok b'torah. Minimize in business, ve'asok, and occupy yourself, be busy with, toil in Torah. Ve'hevei, so I always like to divide the Mishnah into chunks. And that's how I create the separation on the page. So imagine if you guys have pens with you, you could write in front of each bit, you could write 1, 2, 3, okay? So in this case, 4. Number 1, minimize your work and upgrade the amount of time you're studying Torah. Number 2, and you should be exceedingly humble, shefal ruach, b'fnei kol adam, in front of all people. Number 3, V'im batalta min Torah, and if you allowed yourself to become distracted from, or you neglected the Torah, okay? Yesh lecha betelim harbe kenegdecha. There are many things that will cause you to be mevatel Torah, other than the thing that kind of caused you to be mevatel Torah. Okay? So if you chose to neglect the Torah, there'll be many causes for neglect that will come your way. Kenegdecha. V'im amalta b'Torah harbe, and if you worked very hard to study Torah, you toiled in Torah a lot. Yesh sachar harbe liten lecha. There's a tremendous amount of reward prepared for you. Now, these 4 things. Number 1, let's try and kind of translate them into our own word. And the first thing I want you to notice is that there's one which seems to be the odd one out, like they say. Okay? So one more time. The first one is less business, more Torah. Okay? Second one is always be humble in front of all people. Third one is if you choose to be mevatel, to neglect Torah, to not engage in it, right? There's many causes of neglect of Torah that will come your way, or that are there to stand in opposition to you. Number 3. And number 4, and if you did study Torah a lot, don't worry, there's a tremendous amount of reward prepared for those that study and prepare and learn Torah, okay? Now, out of these 4, which is the odd one out? What do you think? Huh? Amel b'Torah? That's what you think, okay? What do you think? Humble. Why humble?
Everything else is about the Torah, and all of a sudden they throw in humble.
Everything else is about the Torah, right? This line it's like kind of seems like it was copied and pasted from another Mishnah, doesn't it? Now, yes, there are differences in each of these ideas, but some of them refer to business versus Torah balance. Some of them refer to, allowing yourself to be distracted and pulled away from Torah, etc., etc. But each one touches on a different thing, but they're all about engagement in Torah, to higher degrees, to lesser degrees, right? To a balanced degree. But the one thing that seems to be completely out of the water over here is this shefal ruach b'fnei kol adam, to be humble in front of every person. So I want to break down the Mishnah together with you today. I think we'll find something powerful here together. The first thing Rabbi Meir teaches us is Hevei mima'et ba'esek ve'asok b'Torah. Do less business and study more Torah. That's what it says. Do less business and study more Torah. Now the question is as follows. What if I just told you to study more Torah? Wouldn't that by definition mean that I would do less business?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Ronnie, why?
People can find extra hours in the day.
People find extra hours in a day. True. So maybe if I'm learning 1 hour a day and I want to learn 2 hours a day, it doesn't mean that I need to leave the office at 4 instead of 5. I could leave the office at 5, and instead of being, from 5 until sleepy time, relaxing, unwinding, learning, I could take that time from something else, correct? Okay, so Ronnie is asking a good question. Why do you need to do less business in order to learn more Torah? Just find other time to learn Torah. So there's something that we need to understand from that, what the Mishnah is teaching us with that, all right? Carry on. So let's try and understand this idea, because I think that there's something magnificent here. The Mishnah is teaching you something very special, and that is that you want to learn more Torah, your time is going to need to be cut from something. Now, again, I hate to bring us back to COVID days, but remember COVID days? De Blasio is holding the specter in front of us like some sort of dastardly, amulet that he swings in front of our eyes. And De Blasio, prepare for full lockdown, they're telling us again, okay? Remember those days? Remember how your whole life you always said, like, if I had extra time, I'd learn how to play guitar. I'd learn to play the piano, right? The house, I'm going to rearrange my house. Furniture is going to be in other places. I'm going to fix up, I'm going to paint that library, I'm going to do that, that custom, talit knitting job that I wanted to do for my grandson. So many plans that we had for the extra time that we just never seemed to find because we had so many things. And then we were locked away for 8 months. And what do we have to show for it? Which rooms did we paint? How much furniture did we rearrange? How many tefillin bags for grandchildren did we knit? Which music instruments do you now play to some level of proficiency? None.
Some people did it.
Very few people.
I know people that declutter.
Ronnie, I know people too. You know when people say, you're a racist? No, some of my best friends are. Some of my best friends accomplished things during COVID. But the vast majority of the world, what did they walk away with from COVID that they could point at right now and say that they have? Very little things. And if they did something, please, dachilak. It's not even, doesn't begin to take up the hours that we had. What did we achieve? We achieved Netflix.
A lot of Netflix.
What did we achieve? We slept more. We relaxed more. We put on a couple of pounds. Now, in the beginning, Zoom was crazy. Everyone wanted to learn because you have extra time. But after a little while, people got zoomed out, like they say. Remember, Jessica, when that happened? You got zoomed. I'm not saying it happened with you. I'm saying Jessica, as a member of the synagogue staff, was someone who was witnessing this phenomenon along with us. People started to get zoomed out. And then what? What did we do with the extra time? I like to call this phenomenon the Friday afternoon fallacy. Friday afternoon, Shabbat now is coming in at 4 o'clock. There's never enough time to be ready for Shabbat. And until the last minute, you're running into the shower, you have to shave, you need to this, you need to put on your makeup, you need to do all these different things that you need to do right before Shabbat. It's down to the wire before you get ready for Shabbat. And amazingly, somehow in the summer, when Shabbat comes in at 9 p.m., at 8:59, you're standing in front of the mirror. 6 more hours you had. More time does not automatically mean more accomplishment. We are experts at wasting time. We've taken it to another level. The news reports, the infinity feeds, the Instagram news updates about everything. I just remember. I like to keep up with the news so that I'm as a rabbi, as a leader in the community, so I'm responding from a place of knowing what's going on in the world, to reassure people, to at the same time take precautions for ourselves and for the. I like to know what's going on, but sometimes you see a news article. I saw one today as I was going down to the news just to see if there's anything interesting that I need to be informed about. I was informed by a news outlet that there is a celebrity chef who was reacting to someone who made a steak on TikTok. I don't care about him. I don't care about the video. But now a news outlet is deciding that someone's reaction to a Twitter comment is now newsworthy. Not just newsworthy, it's the headline. This person reacts to this tweet. When did we start caring about that? But technology today is capable of causing us, again, I'm not even talking about the negative effects of technology for a minute. I'm not talking about the big eyes it gives you. I'm not talking about the Lashon Hara. I'm not talking about inappropriate content. I'm talking about generic content, vanilla content. All of a sudden, you never knew that you needed to watch people cook. And now you need to be somebody's, oh, this is so interesting. Could you imagine in the life before the life that we live in? You're walking past someone in the street, the window's open to the kitchen. Could you imagine a crowd of people just sitting there looking at the person cook? Could you imagine this? It's a strange thing. But that's the world that we live in now. As technology takes tasks away from us, as more and more of the things that used to take serious chunks of time from our day, as we are gifted back that time, we take the gift of extra time and we light it on fire. When was the last time you had to wait in line at a bank? Amazing, right? Says the Mishnah, you need to cut down work hours and learn Torah. The Mishnah is telling you that if you don't figure out where to cut that time from, where's that time coming from? What am I replacing with what? What will happen? You'll do it once, you'll do it twice, it will fade away. Scheduling is one of the most important tools you have in your arsenal. Scheduling time for Torah, scheduling time for mitzvot, scheduling time for family. If you don't put it in your calendar, it's not happening. Says the Mishnah, Mima'et ba'esek. I know a lot of people who hear a Mishnah like this and they say to themselves, wow, Rabbi, 100% right. You couldn't be more right. Learning Torah is very important. They'll get home from work late, eat dinner quickly, leave the house again and go study Torah. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying you need to figure out if you did your family justice by running out the second your wife made you dinner, your family's sitting at home, but you're so busy you don't have time for them. And you have the best reason in the world why you want to leave the house. For Torah, right? Whoa. You have a responsibility to the woman you married. You promised her in the ketubah you're spending time with her. Right? Your children, they need to see you. They need to learn from you. They need to mess around with you. Wasting time with your kids is the most important time you could spend in this world. Rolling around on the floor. Last night I was playing a game with the kids. We had a little Sefer Torah, and each one of the kids would grab the Torah around, and I made up a little song, right? And and the song goes, he has the Torah, he has the Torah. And then she would grab, she has the Torah, she has the Torah, she has the Torah right now. It's Simchas Torah, it's Simchas Torah, it's Simchas Torah in this house tonight. And they're dancing around, and it was insane. It was just crazy. But by the end of this, at this Hanukkah party we had, my nephews, my daughter, my kid, they're running around, grabbing the Torah, holding the Torah like this. It's a waste of time. Was anything achieved with that? Absolutely. Spending time with your children. Spending time with your wife or your husband, talking about nothing is not nothing. It's holy of holies. Now again, it's a difficult thing to talk to your spouse or to your child about something that you personally don't care at all about. But if you care about them, then you'll speak with them about something that they care about. Because it becomes important based on the fact that it's important to someone who is important to you. So says the Mishnah, Mima'et ba'esek v'asok b'torah. You want to go learn Torah. Well, hold on a second. You're automatically thinking, that the time you're gonna cut is your time at home? I'm not so sure. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes people have lots of time at home. And yes, they could give up an hour, no problem. And if they don't have that hour in learning, what would they do instead with it? Would they sit and catch up with their wife? Would they put their kids to bed? The guy who's sitting downstairs anyway, yes, let him go learn. Right? But if that's precious time, so you gotta think, what are you trading? And a lot of times, says the Mishnah, this idea that I'm working the amount of hours that I need to work is just not true. And I want to share what this means. Because the Mishnah then follows this up with the most beautiful line, which in the beginning, Leah correctly identified it as the odd one out. It doesn't seem like it has anything to do with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is about learning Torah. Here it tells you to be humble before every man. No, this is crucial. I can't say that loudly enough. I have a hoarse voice, so literally, I can't say it loudly enough. It's crucial. You know how you work less? If you have humility in front of other people. A famous economist that said a line that was then made popular on social media outlets by influencers. But the line was actually originally said by an economist. It's important to understand that. He said, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Now, you could think that that's a line said by a social media influencer, like a self-help guru. It wasn't. It was said first by an economist. Now, being economical with money is very similar to being economical with time. What is important for me to have spent to invest in? Which things are going to provide a high rate of return, what they call in the world of economics an ROI, a good return on investment? What business deal will provide me with a good return on investment? Sometimes people who are excellent salesmen, who are working very hard in the office, they're making a silly decision. Why? Because they're working for an hour to convince this guy and his wife to buy this beautiful mattress set. What's their markup on the mattress? How much money are they making on the hour that they spent? And they're lying down and they're checking it out and he's lying on the other one and then he goes on his phone so he could check 1-800-SLEEPIES. And if he makes the sale, he made $100. But you spent an hour wooing a client with a possible ROI of $100. Just add a couple zeros. Don't spend the hour selling someone a mattress. Spend the hour selling someone a house. Spend the hour selling someone a car because the commission is higher. Simple. ROI. Don't sell an apartment, sell a house. Don't sell a house, sell a skyscraper. Now, of course, I'm oversimplifying. Of course. But take this model and ask yourself this question. If I have a limited amount of time, what gives me the greatest return on my investment in my spending of time? What gives it to me? And on that, the Mishnah is telling you, 1 second, you have to figure out what your ROI is on your time. So you're coming home from work, and yes, that extra work provided a beautiful, life for you and your family, and it gave you extra luxuries that you could not have had. But just think for 1 second. What's the difference between your $700 shoes and $100 pair of shoes? Could you not find a shoe that looks similar enough to your $700 shoes for $100, for $150? It won't have the same name on it. But does it not also look beautiful? Does it not also make you look beautiful? It does. It's just not that name. So just think for 1 second. If you gave up on the name, not on the look, on the name, if you cut 700 to 350, by definition, if you could do that across your life, your husband, yourself, would need to spend half the amount of time at work. Can we just wrap our heads around this idea for 1 second? half. That means instead of going to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you go to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday, you just chill at home and do nothing. Or every day you come home after lunch. Now, again, I'm giving you an example in economics. I'm giving you an example in lifestyle, which is not always, obviously, it's not always relevant. Some people are living in their best life that they can with the money that they're making. The point here is not about wealth and wealth management. It's about time and time management. So as an example, again, it's very beautiful to go on a holiday, and the holiday could cost you however much it costs you. But ask, there's a price that I'm paying for that holiday. And is that price worth the price that I've paid for it? And could I get the same amount that I got out of that? Because holidays are important, aren't they? Relaxing, stressing. It'll add years to your life, by the way. Relaxing from stress, beautiful, very important. But, you flew 18 hours to go to that island. And what'd you do on the island? You sat on the beach in the sun. Could you not fly 3 hours to another beach and lie in the sun? Is it a different sun? Are you with me here? No one is begrudging anything. You want to go fly wherever you want. I don't care. Fly on a private jet. Every member of your family should fly on a different private jet. Great, go. Beautiful, amazing. No one should even stay in the same hotel. You should have different options, 5 options of food if you want. Alamak, I bless you with the most amazing wealth. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just asking, what is the cost? The cost, and what could I have gotten away with it? What could I have gotten away with if I didn't? Now the funny thing is, different people have different luxuries. Some people, they don't care about a good phone. They just care about a good car. Some people don't care about a car or a phone. They just care about they like eating out in restaurants. Amazing, right? No one is telling you what to do, what not to do. The only question we're asking here is, in life terms, in quality of life terms, what gives you the most? What makes you the happiest? And I think that, like everything else, when we talk about asok b'Torah, we don't just literally mean opening up a Gemara or coming to a Pirke Abot class. We mean investing in the important things in life. My office upstairs now, it looks like I just got my permit to carry a gun, and I held up some Santa on the way to deliver gifts to kids. No, I'm not even joking. It looks like I just robbed the North Pole. There's giant toy baskets in my office because Chai Lifeline is running, giving toys to sick children, and someone made a donation, and it's all sitting there in my office. This is someone the person who donated, she chased me to ask me, how can I make someone happy this Hanukkah? I was too busy to get back with her because that's the nature of the job. I didn't get back. I didn't figure something. I thought of a couple different options, but I didn't have a good idea. Sometimes I have a good idea, a good plan. I meet someone, I saw a case comes to me. And this one, there wasn't just something obvious that came to me. And then before I even responded, because it was a day later, she said, I just saw this beautiful thing on the synagogue's website. I'm sending, wasn't that beautiful? Yeah, that's what happens when a person chooses to chase things that make their life better. Engaging in tzedakah, in chesed, in kindness, in compassion, in empathy, that makes your life better. But it comes at expense. There's time, there's money, there's focus. Says the Mishnah, you have to choose. And I think on some level, esek, what the Mishnah is telling you is, esek is things that bring money and bring things in. Torah is something that develops what a person can give out. How much of your time is engaged in taking, and how much of your time is engaged in giving? That's what the Mishnah is asking. Heveh mima'et ba'esek v'asok b'Torah. Now, if you're going to ask, how am I going to make the time? One answer is, if there's a little bit more humility, if you could look at a regular person, see that person for who they are, think to yourself, what's the difference between me and them? There isn't this class divide. If we erase the lines between classes, and again, I'm not advocating for socialism. My point here is not to be some sort of communist junkie. That's not my point here at all. But most of what we do in life, whether we like it or not, is driven by keeping up with the Joneses. Who the Joneses are is the great question. So you could imagine the clothes I wear, the vacations I take, the car I drive, the house I buy, or the neighborhood I live in. That's decided by who I feel, which group am I in. These are what people like me are buying. Could you live in you could live in a smaller place. Could you live in a little bit further from, yes, you could live a little bit, but you decide based on who are my Joneses. That's a very powerful question. Now, if you go to the homeless community, a bunch of people sleeping on benches, they also have their own Joneses, right? And they'll look at each other and decide what makes sense and what doesn't make sense because of their cohort. So says the Mishnah, if we erase the line for 1 second between you and other people, and we didn't decide that this group is together and this group is together and this group is together, instead of looking and saying, Rabbi, come on, it's a normal thing. Everybody is buying, everybody is having, everybody, and I just kind of erase the line around and I say, everyone, what about these people? Or those people? Or those people? Or those people? Or those people? Rabbi, come on, I'm not homeless. Fine, you're not homeless. Baruch Hashem, thank God. But is there such a difference between this group and this group? Is there not any intersectionality here between these two groups that you could look at that group and say, you know what, none of them are doing it. Just one level down on the socioeconomic, one level. They're not doing it. Maybe I don't. Does this speak to you? I read this Mishnah and I was blown away. One of the things that happens when a person is studying Torah and they're kind of disengaging from the business world is that there's also a danger of a person studying and becoming a better person. How could there be a danger in becoming a better person? The Mishnah tells you an unbelievable secret. The key is to be better and not feel better. A lot of times a person says to themselves, you know what, I left my desk, I came out to learn, everybody else here in the office, bunch of corporate rats stuck in the rat race, they can't spend any time studying Torah, they can't spend any time volunteering. They look down on the other people because they've decided to be better. Is this clear? There's a huge difference between being better and feeling better than other people. Says the Mishnah, while I'm asking you to upgrade your life output and not your life input, just remember that the point of becoming a better person is not to be looking down on the people around you and not to decide that the same way there are socioeconomic classes and circles of people, there aren't also spiritual circles where this is who we are and this person is not as good, not as religious, not as connected, not as traditional, not etc., etc., etc. So the Mishnah is kind of hedging its bets at the top end of Hevei Shefal Ruach and at the bottom end. Beautiful. Now the Mishnah continues and says, V'im batalta min haTorah, and if you neglected to study the Torah, yesh lecha betelim harbe kenegdecha. There are many things, many excuses, many neglects that stand kenegdecha, opposite you. And I want to share a couple different interpretations as to what this means. If you neglected Torah, there's many neglects. There's many causes for neglect. What is the Mishnah telling us here? What do you guys think? If you allow an excuse, batalta min haTorah, you neglected the Torah, there's a lot of causes for neglect in front of you. What is the Mishnah telling you?
You can make every excuse
So one is, there's always going to be excuses. So it's kind of like telling the person who says, I can't go to class because, I can't engage, I can't volunteer because, I can't, forego this luxury because, what's the answer? Well, just be aware that there's many more becauses behind that because. So if you say no now, you're probably never going to say yes. Maybe that's one interpretation. Excellent. Give me another understanding of this Mishnah. What else is this Mishnah? Who else is the Mishnah talking to? Each one of these explanations kind of, sometimes I say refers to different people, and sometimes I say it refers to the same person, but at different places or points in their life. One answer is when you're making an excuse and oh my gosh. As an example, I got the Peloton bike, right? And I was riding on the bike all the time. I don't know how many times a week, but enough that it was, I was on it and using it and I loved it. It was great. You know what happened? Then one day, I don't know, you hurt your finger. One day your leg is a little bit, you want to go on the bike, I don't know, my foot. You know what? It's amazing. When your leg heals, you don't get back on the bike. Why? Because once you fell out for one reason, says the Mishnah, there'll always be another reason keeping you from it. So the only way to not fall into the trap of excuses is to go even when you're hurting, even when you have a legitimate reason, to still show up. I want to share with you an amazing example of this. There was a young man whose name was Elon, and Elon made a Siyum Hashas. He finished all of the Shas, all of the Gemarot. Very difficult achievement. Most people, including rabbis, have not finished Shas. It's very difficult. And I don't mean to run through it and read it. I mean to learn it, to know it. This boy, he wasn't raised religious. So when he threw this big party for the Siyum Hashas, so everyone wanted to know, how did someone who didn't grow up with a religious background, how did he manage to get all the way through all the Gemarot? It's so hard. And Elon first, he was like a little, I don't know, I should speak. There's other people here, maybe other people should speak. Finally, they pressured him. They said, how is this possible? He said, you know what, I'll tell you. He said, years ago, it took me a very long time to learn how to learn. Yeah? A lot of people don't know that. You got to learn how to learn. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed that. You go to classes in the beginning, and someone gives a class, and he explains the idea, he gives you a story, tells you a joke, and you're entertained. And you come back, and your husband, your kids, oh, what did he say? And you're like, oh, he told the most amazing story. What was the point? I don't know, but it was so nice. Tells a joke. You remember the joke? I used to say this. A rabbi can repeat a Dvar Torah, a story, once every 6 months. He could repeat it, because by then they forgot it. He could repeat a good joke once every 4 or 5 years, because they really remember it. A Dvar Torah he could repeat every day. You know why? Because if it's packaged, and it's packaged in a way where people are learning, they're getting a story, they're getting, a lot of times, unless you learned how to learn, you didn't pick out, what was the point? What exactly was he saying? What did I learn from this woman? What's my takeaway? What's my take home? So Elon, this young man, he finally learns enough, he finishes all of Shas. It took me a long time, he says, to learn how to learn. And finally, he says, when I finally got the hang of it and I could open up a Gemara by myself and study, he says, all of a sudden, I started getting my business, this guy, they're calling me from the office. All of a sudden, all the time I was able to squirrel away for learning, it started to run from me. I went to the rabbi, Rav Shimshon Pincus, and I said to him, Rabbi, what should I do? I don't know what to do. I finally learned how to learn, and it's not. The rabbi said, you know what? He says, from now on, I want you to take a Gemara, not a small paperback, a big fat Gemara, they're this big, it's heavy, it doesn't fit in things, okay? Wherever you go, You got to go to the office? No problem. Take the Gemara with you. Wherever you go. You have to meeting? Take the Gemara with you. You're schlepping this Gemara. He says, I don't care if you don't learn anything. But kiss it in the morning, right? If you have a minute to learn, open it up, learn even 1 minute. Kiss the Gemara. Say, thank you Hashem for letting me learn Torah. And carry on your day. He says, I'll tell you, the first day I carried the Gemara around, I didn't even have time to open it once. Between meetings and conference calls and the boardroom and this and that, I didn't have time. He says, and the next day and the next day and the next day, and eventually I had a minute. And the next day I had a minute. Next day I had 2 minutes, and then 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes. He says, and soon I was learning hours and hours a day from this Gemara. He says, and you know what Rav Shimshon Pincus told me? You know why this idea works? He said, if you love the Torah, then the Torah will love you back. If you love someone and you can't find time to squeeze them in and they love you too, you know what happens? They keep pestering you until you find time. They keep calling. Someone who doesn't love you so much, they try once, they try twice, and after that, khalas. They got scheduled out of your life without you even making a decision. If you love the Torah, it loves you back. If you carry the Gemara, because maybe I'll get a chance, maybe I'll have an opportunity. You kiss it when you learn something, then the Torah keeps knocking on the door of your consciousness. I'm here, here's a class, here's an opportunity, here's something. And the Torah chases you down. He says, and eventually it got me to this place where I'm now finishing all of the Shas. So I think what the Mishnah is communicating is, if you neglected Torah, there's 1,000,001 excuses. The only way to push through the excuses on things that we want to do is to do it even when we have a good excuse. And do it in a reduced capacity. Even do it in a negative capacity. I mean, when I say that, I don't mean in a negative frame of mind, but even when you're not accomplishing almost anything, the fact that you took the book with you, that's something. It means, I want to read this. I want to engage in this. You have a class on your phone, you're not sure if you're going to get time to listen to it. You know what? Take your headphones. You didn't get time, doesn't matter, but you tried. If you keep trying, when you have an excuse, then all the excuses will fall in front of you like a house of cards. Our rabbis tell us something which I thought was very frightening. You know, we learned already that when a person does a mitzvah, they create a positive, a beautiful, a holy, a good angel. And when they create, and when they do an avera, a sin, then they create a bad, a negative, an angel of sin. But it's not just that they wait for you in Shamayim until the day of judgment, when, you know, they're trying to figure out your case, and they point to the, you know, the army of good angels versus the army of bad angels, and then we see who has more. Those angels are actively working in your life. So your good angels are smoothing the way, are bringing you opportunities for more mitzvot. And your bad angels are getting in your way for you to do mitzvot. They're bringing you temptation. Why? We already learned it in the Mishnah. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. We also learned avera goreret avera. How? How does one mitzvah bring another mitzvah? How does one avera give another avera? The rabbis tell us that in the Yen Levanon, he writes that when you've done a mitzvah, you've brought this good angel into the world. So that angel is looking for opportunities for you. He's bringing you ani. He's bringing you a good feeling in your heart, a feeling of wanting to learn. The more we do it the other way, the more it's like we have to hack through the weeds in order to even see a path forward. And that's why the longer a person's been out of it, the harder it is to get back in. I can't state the importance of this. One of the reasons why I am not doing Zoom in this class is for this reason. You fall out of going to classes until you get yourself to come again. It's hard. Because you created a new routine. But what we're learning over here also is on a spiritual level. There's angels arranging roadblocks. So you want to go to the class, but you haven't gone in 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. So the angels, when you call the doctor's office, you're like, yes, I need an appointment to check my heart. The nurse says, so we only have Tuesday at 12 available. You're thinking, only Tuesday? That's my class. Nothing Wednesday? No, sorry, nothing Wednesday. Nothing earlier or later? Nothing earlier or later. Why is there only one appointment in your doctor's office for the time of your weekly class? Because you neglected the class. Isn't that powerful? Im bitalta min haTorah. If you chose to neglect, if you chose not to engage, then you know what? Hashem says, okay, you want the honey now? You want the gold? Now you're going to need to fight double as hard. Rabotai, listen to this. So that sounds a little bit difficult. So why did I stop doing Zoom? Because if it's Zoom, you could do it in your house. And what happens when the class is on Zoom? Look, I know I'm the rabbi. I know I'm the one on the other side of the Zoom camera. But not everyone remembers to turn off their camera. And even when people turn off their camera, not everyone remembers to mute themselves. So what happened? You logged in for your Zoom class. Rabbi, yeah, please put it on Zoom. We want to log in. I know. Rohi, I know. But when you're on a Zoom class, you're also watching something else in the background. You're also making food. You're also doing something else. And sometimes that's not a bad thing because you're listening to the class while you're making challah. Beautiful. But some people, I remember once, we were on a Zoom call. Someone forgot that, and they were on a business call. He's literally in the middle of negotiating a settlement with someone, and it went live. Everyone could hear. The guy's like, no, the bank, the this, the that. Unbelievable. Now, that's not watching a class while you're making challah. That's logging onto the class so you feel like you're at the class or the rabbi saw that you came, but not actually giving yourself the ability to listen to the class at all. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Better you were here, right? Better there's no Zoom. Better you have a reason to have to come, and then you listen. And then you'll get back involved in the swing of things. And then all of a sudden, the million things that are popping up will stop popping up so often. Fascinating. But it's also a good thing because isn't that guy who's on the business call, but he's logged into the class, isn't he the same as the guy taking the Gemara that he can't open? See? This is what it means, Heveh shefal ruach bifnei kol adam. One side of us loves to judge and be negative, but one side of us is also capable of seeing the beauty of someone trying, even if they can't do it exactly the right way. Heveh shefal ruach bifnei kol adam. So the Mishnah continues and says, so what does one do? What does one do if they already neglected the class, the mitzvah, the opportunity? What if one neglected to spend family time for 10 years? And now the kids don't want to spend time with him or her. Remember we said, Asok b'Torah means, it can mean anything here. Anything that is a mitzvah, a positive thing. Right? So what does someone do? Now that they neglected it, there's 1,000,001 reasons more than when they started why they can't. Right? So what does he do? Listen to this. What's the opposite of batel? Batel means neglect. The opposite of neglecting someone is being with someone. Right? So neglect is absent. What's the opposite of absent? Present. Opposite of absent is present. But amel im amalta does not mean present. It doesn't mean that you came to a class. Amalta means you toiled in the Torah. V'im amalta b'Torah harbe. And if you toiled a lot in the Torah, Yesh sachar harbe liten lach. God has a lot of reward to give you. What are we communicating here? We're communicating on one level. What's the greatest reward for a mitzvah? The fact that mitzvah, sechar mitzvah, we said already. What's the reward of a mitzvah? Sechar mitzvah, mitzvah. Mitzvah goreret, mitzvah. So what happens if I'm on the Averah train? I did one Averah, which brought me 2, which brought me 4, which brought me 8, which brought me 16, which brought me 32. I'm now drowning in Averot. What am I supposed to do? It's not enough to be present. You want to dial it back. It's got to go the other way. Remember Rambam we spoke about? When a person is trying to change a midah, a character trait, the example he gives is if you have a piece of paper, okay? And a person has a character trait. And it's, if you will, folded down on one side. He's too impatient. So what does he want to do? He wants to stop being impatient. So what does he think? You know what I'll do? I'll go back to being impatient. I don't want to be impatient. What happens if he tries to bring it back to the middle? The paper's already bent. The only way, as he says, Rambam says, is if you then reverse it to the exact opposite way, and then eventually, after you go to the opposite extreme, and then you straighten the paper, then the paper lies straight. Right? That's how you fix a bad midah. By going to the opposite extreme. So if you were callous, if you were uncaring, the way is not, you want to fix that, is not to become not callous. It's to become so overly compassionate that when you then kind of let go of that extreme compassion, you're now in a healthy and balanced place. Does that make sense? If that's the case, that's what we're learning here in our Mishnah. If you forgot it, you neglected, amalta. Work double hard. Toil in the Torah. One of the reasons why in this class, we've done it the way that we've done it is because I wanted there to be an opportunity where it's not just I'm saying, I'm speaking, but rather that there's an in and out. That's why we made it a little bit more like a workshop, so that we could have this dialogue, so that you could give me your examples, so that you could ask what does the Mishnah mean as compared to or as inserted into my life. That's amel batorah. Not sitting back enjoying, but rather sitting forward and engaging. If I neglected and there's a bunch of things in the way, I want to turn that back, I got to go the other extreme. I got to work on Torah. I have to work on my mitzvot. I have to strain myself in them. And by flipping it the other way around, ultimately then I get back to a healthier place. You know, I want to maybe perhaps now look at the Mishnah one last time, and then I'm going to ask you we're going to do a little workshop element to end it today. Let's look now one more time for the drone shot of the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir teaches us, figure out which things in your life you could do a little bit less of in order to do a little bit more of the things that you really should be doing. Dedicate which hour, which 5 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, doesn't have to be an hour. Which 5 minutes am I carving out of my workday to be able to do this? Okay? Live by that scheduling option. V'asok b'Torah, ve'heve shefal ruach b'fnei kol ha'adam. Be a little humble in that. So maybe you could cut back on the work because maybe you don't need as much as you think you need. Another interpretation is you're now going to work on this period, on this process of self-betterment. Approach it with humility and understand that making yourself better doesn't elevate you over somebody else. You want to know, oh, well, I'm taking time out to study and learn. How come you can't? Well, you don't know what's going on in their house or what's going on in their life. And maybe, by the way, the guy spends his whole evening or her whole evening studying Torah or in meditation or in whatever else. And you want to do all other things, so that's why you need to do it now. But don't assume that that person is on a lower level than you just because you're now in this process of self-betterment. Vim bitalta, if you let go, if you neglect, understand that it's going to become a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger wave. And that process will help you get in right before the wave comes. And it will also help you identify that the myriad reasons why I can't ever make it to a class or to a volunteering session or to spend time in an appropriate way is because I've stockpiled so many hours of wasting time that by now I'm surrounded by angels shooting these opportunities for time wasting at me in a way that I've never had before. And what's the answer to that? The answer to that is v'im amalta b'Torah harbe, is to toil in Torah, to struggle in Torah. Now I remember in the radio there used to be stations that would broadcast that, you know what they played on their station? You know which music they played? Easy listening. You ever see a station that says easy? What's easy listening? What's easy listening versus hard listening? What is hard listening? Rap is hard listening? Probably not, by the way. For people who love rap, that's their flow. That's what they love. They're enjoying it. Go make a rap fan listen to a classical music station. That's hard listening. In effect, what we're saying over here is, Amalta b'Torah means don't learn Torah in a way which is convenient and easy and only enjoyable. You hear that? Struggle a little. Sweat a little. That sweat pushes back all these things that are kind of robbing you from the opportunities and fixes the seesaw a bit. So let's think, what kind of Torah is hard to learn? One way is where it's Gemara type, where it's hard intellectually to kind of keep on, follow all the logic, you got to break your brain to figure out each opinion, remember all the opinions, why they disagree with one another, right? So one way is when something is intellectually difficult. But there's also another kind of Torah, which is, it's not easy listening. You know why? Not because it's hard, but because it's one of those painful truths. And when you learn about things where you're not necessarily so perfect, and the Torah teaches you and shows you, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, you know what? I need to be better. That's hard listening. So I think one of the elements that we're learning over here is that when a person is prepared to do that, to learn Torah hard, yesh sachar harbe litenach, there's tremendous reward. The first thing we think about when we think about the amazing amount of reward is olam haba, the world to come, the eternity of the soul. But that's not the only place where God rewards you for Torah. We are rewarded immeasurably in this world from Torah. A Torah lifestyle rewards you tremendously. You know, strong marriages, faithful marriages are built on Torah. They're built on morality, doing the right thing, spending money correctly, built on Torah, understanding the value, doing charity, having children that respect their parents. Is there anything that we want more than having strong relationships with the people that we love? Where does that come from? That comes from mutual respect. Does the Mishnah teaches you that? Every other Mishnah. Finding humility with regards to another person, understanding their value, building them up. So all the reward that Torah gives you in terms of, so to speak, payment in Olam Haba, that's not at the expense of the unbelievable life that it gives you right here and right now. There's no feeling in this world, no resort, no luxury that can make you feel the way you feel when you do something that is difficult but right. Doesn't compare. When you've helped someone fix their life, like literally fix their life. You're gonna compare that to a purse, a bag? It's just, right? They're not in the same realm. They don't even live in the same, you can't begin to equate the two. Yesh sachar harbe litenach. The Torah has tremendous amounts of reward to give you. So I think the Mishnah is saying, you're going to take time away from other things. If you're going to move yourself from the taking column to the giving column just a little bit more, just nudge that line a little bit down the road. If you're going to do that, and you're thinking, what am I giving up? Remember, sachar harbeh. You're getting paid tremendously, just in another way. I remember I was talking with a young rabbi who was taking a new job in a community. And the rabbi said, the salary that they're giving me, it's not, it's nothing. I don't understand how how I'm supposed to work for this salary, how I'm supposed to live. It's not the same as what I was. So I asked him, I said, tell me, is the shul providing you with a place to live? He says, yes. The shul has a house that they own, okay? And I'll be moving into that house. I said, okay, I hear you. I said, and does the shul have a health insurance policy? Yeah, the shul has a health insurance policy. Yeah, okay. I said, and does the shul have... It turned out, after 5 minutes of questions, I was just jotting things down as I went. And I said to him, you're making a mistake in the way you're perceiving your salary. Yes, they're paying you this in terms of that one column on the spreadsheet. But what is the value of the package that they're giving you? It's much more than that. So your smaller salary, with your rent covered, with this covered, with that covered, with this covered, is actually more than, it was almost 25% more than the number that he wanted. But the number that he wanted was without a house and without the car and without the expenses and without the parsonage and without. The Mishnah ends and says, you're working so hard to provide yourself with a good life. And yes, that extra hour means that you don't have that income. And yes, that extra hour that you took out of your own leisure time means that you don't have this leisure time that you wanted. And you're giving up on this game with the friends. And you're giving up. There's a cost, no question. But don't look at one column and think that that's the whole story. Yesh sachar harbe litenach. There's a lot of and many types of reward that a person gets. So whilst I might get camaraderie from this game, I might get income from this hour at work, I might get this from that extra hour in exercise, I might get that from right? You might actually be getting more on balance if you did this. You might actually be able to supplement what you had over there. Someone said to me, Rabbi, we were working with an organization called Gift in London, and they deliver packages to people that don't have food to eat in their homes. Okay, amazing charity. So the person said to me, Rabbi, I wish I had time to deliver packages. He says, but I don't have the time. He says, I only have this 1 hour, twice a week that I use. But he says, I go to the gym. He says, and I know I'd love to give up that hour in the gym, Rabbi. He says, but I can't. That hour in the gym, it's very important for me. My health, it's very important for me. I said, as it should be, 100%. I said, tell me, what do you do in the gym? He says, a mix of things. He says, I use the treadmill, I use the stepper, I lift weights. I said, Rohi, I'm also asking you to walk, climb steps, and carry things. That same hour that he would deliver the packages would be not even different, the same exact exercise that he would get in the gym, he would get here. And there, at the end of the day, he paid the gym, and he had no mitzvah. And here, right, he didn't have to pay the gym, he saved on the gym membership, yani, right? And he got the exercise, and he got to see the families that he was bringing literal life-saving food to. Sometimes all we need is a shift in perspective to realize that it's not that I'm giving up time from my taking lifestyle and adding in the giving column of my lifestyle. Actually, I'm adding into the giving column, and I took nothing from my taking lifestyle. That is a powerful message that I think the Mishnah ends off with. So we'll end our class at this, but I'm going to end with a question as soon as I turn this off. See you next week.